Maybe you've been listening to Healthy Looks Great on You podcast for a while now, and you've heard about the benefits of eating plant-based on your heart, on your brain, on your blood pressure, your joints, your mood, your sleep, and so many other things. But you're wondering how to get started. You need recipes, you need advice. As I'm scrolling through Facebook, I often ran across an account called EatPlantBased. And I invited the content creator, Terri Edwards, to be on our show today. I think you're going to enjoy what she has to say. You're listening to Healthy Looks Great on You, a lifestyle medicine podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Vickie Petz Kasper. For 2 decades, I practiced as a board-certified obstetrician-gynecologist, navigating the complex world of women's health. But life took an unexpected turn when my own health failed. Emerging on the other side, I discovered the transformative power of lifestyle medicine. Now, I'm on a mission to share its incredible benefits with you. So buckle up, because we are going on a journey to our very own mini medical school, where you will learn how lifestyle medicine can help prevent, treat, and sometimes even reverse disease. This is episode 121, How to Eat Plant-Based. Terri Edwards is a licensed Food for Life instructor with the Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine. And usually when I have a guest on my show, I talk about how we met. But we literally just now met. But welcome to the show, Terri.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
So I have to tell you that I just found you on Facebook. Your feed, Eat Plant-Based, kept popping up with all these delicious looking recipes. And so many of my podcast listeners and so many of my Facebook followers are always asking, what do you eat and where do you get your recipes? And that's not really my area of expertise. And it's so funny that when I saw your Eat Plant-Based, I really didn't even know your name. I only knew you as Eat Plant-Based. So I'd love for you to just share your story with us and let us know how you got started.
My start was because of health problems. I've been plant-based since 2013, so 11 years, and I was dealing with a lot of medical issues. I had high blood pressure and high cholesterol. I had sleep problems, hormonal issues, and things like that. But really and truly, the biggest thing that drove me to trying to find another answer was my joints. At the time, I was 45, but I started having problems with my joints when I was 35 years old. And it started in my hands. You know, a lot of people who have joint problems, it starts in weight-bearing joints, your knees, your ankles, and things like that. But for me, it was my hands and it was my hips as well. And at that time, I rode horses, and that is when I noticed it, when you're sitting on a horse and the hips were a real issue, joint problems that early, you know, a little scary, but rheumatoid arthritis runs in my family. So you can imagine where my mind was going. My mom's been disabled with rheumatoid arthritis since she was either 52 or 53, and I'm about to turn 57. My sister was just diagnosed maybe a year and a half ago with rheumatoid arthritis as well. So I had watched my mom decline over the years, and she continues to. And when I started having joint problems, it scared me. But I went to the doctor. I was tested negative, many doctor's visits, and nothing was working. My daughter was in college, and she had seen the documentary Forks Over Knives, and she asked me to watch it, and I put it off for a long time. I really wasn't sure what it was about. If I would have known what it was about, I would have been on it, because I was looking for relief. But when I saw it, that was the game changer for me, because I tried a lot of other diet plans, because at the time I was 50 pounds heavier than I am now. And I knew that losing weight would help with joints and high blood pressure and all that.
I do think that's one thing that we can all agree on, that losing weight often helps with chronic conditions, but it's hard to sort through the noise and understand which diet is best.
I tried Atkins and things, and I did lose 10, 15 pounds at a time, but it was just not sustainable, and it didn't help with my joints at all. And that was the goal. So after watching Forks Over Knives, I was convinced enough to say, we'll do this on a trial basis. And I'm just 100% or nothing kind of a person with something like that. I felt like if I tippy toe into plant-based nutrition is absolutely fine. And we encourage people to start however that they can. But I dove in because I wanted to know exactly if it was what we were dealing with. And 2.5 weeks in, I could tell a big difference with my joints. And I'd been on doxycycline for years for adult acne. I had just never recovered from acne as a teenager and was constantly battling with it. So my skin and my joints, I noticed, and sleeping right off the bat, things were heading in the right direction. So my plan was 4 weeks, but 2.5, 3 weeks in, it was just a no-brainer. I knew that it was helping and I had found the answer. So that was the beginning of my journey. And then I'm sure you know, just because of your own health journey, you get on fire because you feel like you found gold and you want to let everybody else know about it.
Oh, yes, you're totally right. I had diabetes that was induced by the steroids. And then even after I got off the steroids, it started coming back. And I started eating plant-based, and it completely reversed all my numbers. And I wanted to tell everybody about it.
I wanted to, well, first, of course, my family, I wanted to share it with them. The doctors that I was seeing at the time, nobody mentioned diet. They told me I needed to lose a bit of weight, and I knew that. But as far as the power of food, changing your diet and what it could do, it was just like crickets, nothing. So when I went back to my doctor, I just wanted them to know I had found the Holy Grail, and I wanted them to be able to tell their patients. And so when I went back in and they said, oh, numbers look great. Everything's great. I'd lost a good bit of weight at that time. What are you doing? And I said, I went plant-based. And the practitioner that I was seeing said, oh, there are many doctors in this practice. They said, they didn't say plant-based. They said they're vegetarian because it was the Seventh-day Adventist. And I was like, why didn't you tell me, So they said they didn't have resources. They said that even if they wanted to encourage people to change their diets, they didn't have the resources to do it. And that was a light bulb moment for me. I wanted to teach. I wanted to be able to do it. So I, of course, took the Collin Campbell Cornell class and just empowered myself with knowledge as well as just researching. And then I applied to the Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine to be able to teach their Food for Life program. And with the Food for Life program, you can teach it anywhere you want. It can be a community thing, it can be a church thing, but I targeted medical facilities, and I was just blessed. I'll be honest, I was blessed because there are plenty of Food for Life instructors that want to do medical facilities, but it's really, really hard to get your foot in the door. But I got in with a cancer center, a large cancer center in South Carolina. And once I did that, doors started opening. That same hospital asked me to come in and teach at their Heart Wellness Center. And I'm right on the state line of North and South Carolina. So I was teaching at medical facilities in both directions, North and South Carolina. And just so very thankful to be able, to share the message with patients. It was the public. Sometimes it was even the healthcare providers. They had me come in. They were doing different events, and I would just be one of many people who were offering information.
That's so awesome. And I think it's common that people don't have the resources and they also don't have the time. And you're right. What a blessing that you were able to go in and educate patients, the public, and even providers.
It's been a whirlwind. And in the meantime, I started my Eat Plant-Based blog, and it was really to share recipes and information with family and friends. But who knew? It took off. Not immediately, it didn't, because I started it in 2014, but over the years it has taken off, and now we're getting 500,000 views a month from over 150 countries. It's just mind-boggling, and I'm thankful for every minute because we're reaching people with the plant-based message every single day. So, and I just feel blessed. That's it. I feel blessed to have my health back, and I feel blessed to be able to share my passion for plant-based nutrition.
What a great story. You touched on so many great points. First of all, I want to circle back to your motivation because as I talk to patients, I often find that there's something in their life that happened that was a turning point that made them want to make an improvement in their health, because we all know that the pain of staying where you are has to be greater than the pain of change before you're willing to do the hard work of making a change. And I often see that when people are looking forward at their parents, sometimes that feels a little bit like a mirror, and it can be scary, but it can also be very motivating to get started making healthy changes in their life. And so I love that you mentioned your mom on the forward end and then your daughter coming up behind you and also kind of helping you in that process to discover plant-based. And you also mentioned the medical system. And I know a lot of times people are very frustrated by that. They want information, but I can tell you as someone who practiced medicine for 20 years, most patients did not want to hear it. And for a long time as a society, and this is totally a generalization, of course, but as a society, people wanted a quick fix. They wanted a pill to fix it, and people really didn't want you to talk to them about lifestyle, number one. And number two, physicians don't get the training they need. So I love what you're doing. It's so important to have people like you that are specifically trained to come in and teach doctors and make the whole system work. So this is awesome. But you also mentioned resources, and I think that's where we're lacking. So tell me a little bit more about your certification and where that's available.
I get a lot of questions about that because now plant-based and whole food plant-based and the resources are a lot more than when I started. But the two that I'm most familiar with are the Collin Campbell Cornell class, which I took first, and I really enjoyed it very much and felt like it empowered me, especially to apply to the physicians committee. But a question that I get often is, what's the difference between the Cornell class and the physicians committee? And they truly are totally different. The physicians committee, I tell people it's more like a job application. When you apply to the physicians committee to teach the Food for Life program, it really is an application. There's a 10-15-minute lecture from Dr. Neil Barnard. He's the president of the physicians committee. So an instructor is basically there to do a food demo, show people how easy it is, and then go through the lecture through books that go along with it.
That's great, because it isn't that hard, but it seems really hard when you're first getting started.
I taught the cancer series, I taught the diabetes series, and the Kickstart Your Health, which is general, and that's the one I did at the Heart Wellness Center. I highly recommend it for anybody who's passionate about this way of eating and feels like you have a gift for teaching. It's a good option. One of the medical facilities that I was teaching at was an OBGYN, and one physician, and when I went to her in 2015 to see if she wanted to offer classes to her patients, I got there and they had a teaching kitchen. I just couldn't believe it. It was part of the practice. They had it wasn't large, but it was a teaching kitchen. And so she got so excited. She signed up and she became a Food for Life instructor. So they have a program for individuals, and then they have a program for businesses or medical practices or anything where they can get certifications to teach the classes as well.
Okay, now I'm jealous. A teaching kitchen in a medical practice. Wow, that's exciting. You know, I try to focus on all 6 pillars of lifestyle medicine, which is our sleep, physical fitness, stress management, social connectedness, and minimizing harmful substance exposure. But I also try to make the distinction when it comes to nutrition between plant-based and vegetarian. But a lot of people ask, how do you even get started? And so I'd like for you to discuss that a little bit. And also, you mentioned that when you do something, you're 100% all in. And I'm the same way. But some people say, well, with plant-based, you shouldn't do that because you're going to have some digestive problems, some gastrointestinal distress, and things like that. So do you have an opinion? Can you just jump in with both feet and do it? Or do you need to sort of ease into it?
It really can be either way. When I was teaching classes, because we were in it for 4 weeks, I really encouraged people to go all in And I know that that is tough, and I know it seems overwhelming. It was easier to do when I had them in the class because they were having to come back and hear other people's reports and stuff. And so they wanted to stay on pace with everybody else. But when you're just talking to the general public, I encourage everybody, if you can. If you don't go in 100%, then you're mixing in other foods. So it's really hard to tell what's doing what. So I encourage people to do that if they can, because you'll know what effect your body, what responses your body is going to have if you're not introducing other negative animal-based processed foods. And then if you eat something that's not on plan and then you go, oh, well, I'm on plant-based, but I'm not feeling any better. Well, maybe it was that other thing you added in. So it's really hard to tell unless you go 100%, but you don't have to.
That's so true. I know for me, I first started eating healthy many, many years ago. I wasn't plant-based, but I did not eat refined and processed foods. And until I completely abstained from sugar and white flour and things like that, I didn't understand how bad it was making me feel. But once I got completely off of it, and then I would cheat and eat some, then I could see, oh, that's what was causing me to have a terrible headache, or that's what was causing my joints to hurt. And I also think you make a really great point about mixing things in. You can try something, and if you're not completely doing it, then you can say, oh, well, it didn't work. But maybe it's because you weren't being strict enough.
A lot of people say that they are overwhelmed. If you're going 100%, you need to make sure your doctor knows what you're doing and all this kind of stuff. Well, I taught one of those first classes, and then we came and encouraged them to go 100%. We came back for the second class, and one of the patients in the class was not a patient of the doctor that I was at the facility. And so her doctor didn't know what she was doing. And she was a heart patient and she had diabetes. And during that week, she had gone 100%, but then she started having the hypoglycemic things, and it scared her because she didn't know what was going on. And she came back and she said, I had to go see my doctor. I went 100% plant-based and I got to feeling so badly. And she said they had to reduce my medicine. And I was like, oh my goodness, we should have. And from that point on, I really did make a point of telling people, if you're going 100%, be mindful of your medications, because if the food is working as medicine, which it is, work with your doctor. Don't, of course, don't go reducing your own medications, but it's that powerful.
What a great story, and what a great reminder that your physician does need to know what you're doing, because they're going to need to keep an eye on things and adjust your medication if it's necessary. Because you're right, food is medicine.
If you go in at 100%, it's that powerful that we saw after that many patients needing medicines reduced during that time. So that's another positive thing as far as going 100%. If you want to toe dip, I tell people, okay, if you can only make small changes, maybe commit. It's big in the plant-based world, meatless Monday now, or just in general. Start with a meatless, doesn't have to be Monday, but a meatless day, and make your breakfast, your lunch, and your dinner, and all of your snacks completely plant-based. And then that will get you comfortable with making a few meals and building it up. And as you get comfortable, go to 2 days and then continue until you get to all 7 days. We call that toe dipping. If you want to toe dip and get in there. And then people who are even reluctant to do that, I would always say, start each meal with vegetables and fruits and legumes and grains, and crowd out all the other stuff. The more of the good foods that you can put in first, the less of the not so good foods that you'll be able to pack in. And hopefully over time that will become more natural and you'll enjoy it, and you'll reap the benefits from all of the fiber and the antioxidants and the phytonutrients and everything that you're going to be getting from all the added fruits, vegetables, grains, and legumes.
That is excellent advice. I used to tell my patients all the time, be sure and try to fill up on the good stuff, and you'll be less tempted by the bad stuff. So put that in your stomach first. I think that's really good advice. And again, I'm having some of my listeners be more and more interested in plant-based, and not just my listeners, but my immediate family. Diabetes runs in my family very strongly. Dementia runs in my family. And so there's been more interest in the people in that circle. And they're always asking me, well, what do you eat or where do you get your recipes? And it's funny because I really never cooked until I was like 40 years old. And suddenly I discovered cooking and I love it. And it took me a few years, but now I'm a really great cook now. And it's so weird because when you say you can cook, that means you can cook without a recipe. But I still think the majority of people would prefer to have a recipe. For me, I like to have a recipe to start with, and I may just kind of do my own thing after that and modify it. My sister's the same way, but I saw your recipes popping up over and over on Facebook, and I was like, oh, I want to try that, and I want to try that, and I want to try that. And so do you have a cookbook, or is mostly what you do on your blog?
I am working on a cookbook. Seems like it's such a slow process. It's a huge undertaking when I'm trying to do so many other things, but there's been so many folks asking me about a cookbook that it is in progress right now, but most of it is written. My sister works for me too, so together we are tweaking some of the recipes. So it's a combination of about half recipes that are from the website already and half that are brand new. So I'm excited and hopeful that we can just keep pushing through and get that on there. But yeah, we have probably somewhere between 400 and 500 recipes on the website. So they're really easy to find. There's a recipe index, and we have it broken down because one recipe category, for especially for the non-cooks, is 30-minute or less. These are the easy ones that you can get in there and make really simply. And then, of course, we've got dinners, breakfasts, and black bean recipes. They're just broken down into a lot of different categories so people can find them very easily. We use social media, especially Facebook, Pinterest, and Instagram, and people subscribe. So we send out emails 3 times a week for recipes. And we also have articles from like Dr. T. Collin Campbell, Dr. McDougall, Dr. Neil Barnard. We have a number of physicians that are guests, and they write about things like calcium and iron and fiber and all those things. And we have success stories. So, and cooking tips. I wanted to kind of be an oasis, an online oasis for people, and beginner guides. We've got lots of beginner guides for people who are reluctant. There's probably 20 different grocery lists, 7-day meal, just all kinds of things to help people get started, because it's going back to being a resource. Like those first physicians told me they needed resources. I wanted to have a website that covered all of the bases, the science and nutrition, which really I'm not an expert or qualified to do. That's why we've got the guest physicians and scientists doing that for us. But the recipes I can do and the cooking tips I do. And so, yeah, it's just sort of a well-rounded place people can go to get started, or for people who've been doing it for 20 years and just want new recipes. So.
And that is exactly why I wanted to invite you to come on the podcast. And I will put a link to your website in the show notes. And so hopefully people that listen to this podcast can subscribe. And what you're describing really is exactly what people have been asking me for, because that's not really my area of expertise. I mean, I can cook, but a lot of times I don't write down what I've done, and I don't really share it with other people so much. And so I think this is going to be a great resource for people that subscribe to my email list. So when I send that out, I'll put a link to your blog as well. And for those of you who do not subscribe to my email list, there's a link for that in the show notes for you. One last question for you. Do you have a single favorite recipe?
I have a number of them, and it really just depends. Oh my goodness, if you're thinking of desserts or whatever. For right now, I'm thinking it's warm weather and summer. There is a smashed chickpea avocado salad that is wonderful on sandwiches and lettuce wraps on there. And it's really easy to make. You can make it like in 10 minutes. And it's just got chickpeas and avocado, lime, cilantro. You can leave the cilantro out if you don't care for it, but it's delicious. And a few seasonings, it's absolutely wonderful. So that one's quick, versatile, and easy. Black bean burgers. We have an amazing black bean burger recipe on there. I've heard so many people, and I've tasted them too myself, black bean burgers that are mushy, and I don't do mushy. I just don't do mushy. I ordered a black bean burger at a restaurant and it was mushy. And I told my husband, I said, I am so tempted to just so kindly go back there and say, hey, you might want to try my recipe, because ours, oh my goodness, I was disappointed with that one. But with ours, you can even put it on the grill. I prefer to bake it because it makes it even more firm, but it's that firm and they are so good.
Oh, you totally should have done that. You should have shared your recipe. And if you don't mind, I'm going to put a link to your black bean burgers and your chickpea avocado salad in my newsletter.
I'm doing a project with PCRM and they have this, it's chickpea edible cookie dough that I know it sounds ridiculous, but it is amazing. And so I tried it out on them because I'm getting ready to do a project with PCRM and I wanted to make sure that it was actually all that, and it was so good. They were coming back and asking me to pack little things for them to take some with them. So it's a win if you can get young people who are not plant-based to want more, then I think that that's awesome. So some of those recipes I've tried that I mentioned are my favorites, the black bean burgers and the chickpea avocado salad. Those are some that I've tried on these kids, adult kids, and they've loved them. So they would be great ones for your listeners to give a try as well. Pasta primavera, and I had an Asian salad.
It sounds yummy. And like I said, when I see your recipe pictures and those descriptions pop up on Facebook, I'm always like, oh, that looks so good. And I recently did a podcast episode on menopause, and a lot of my listeners are in that menopause age range. And so very many of them talked about hip pain. And I know you mentioned that. And I had a similar issue with joint pain that was relieved by eating plant-based. And so I hope this is going to be a big encouragement to a lot of people. And even just eliminating processed foods. If I would eat something like chips, then I notice that my joint pain gets worse. And so until you go all in, it is kind of hard to see not only the benefits, but also the negative implications of what you are eating. Because the cleaner you eat, the more you get towards plant-based, the more you notice that when you eat something bad, how bad it makes you feel. And so then that kind of has a snowball effect, and it lowers the temptation because you think, I don't want that anymore. That made me feel terrible. But until you get off of it, you don't really realize how awful it makes you feel. You just kind of have this general lack of energy. My joints hurt. I can't sleep. I can't lose weight. I'm this, I'm that. And people don't really know what they're missing by eating cleaner, eating plant-based.
You mentioned one thing that I wanted to stress just a little bit because it seems overwhelming. After I watched Forks Over Knives, I was overwhelmed with the information and I knew nothing about plant-based nutrition. So I would encourage your listeners to not think long-term right now. You need to maybe start off with something that doesn't overwhelm you like I did. My goal in the beginning was 4 weeks. So maybe go in committed for 4 weeks and give yourself some space and say after 4 weeks, we'll see. But I don't know about you, but I can do almost anything for a short period of time. If I know it's a short period of time, then okay. But you think past that and I get a little overwhelmed. So, or maybe you do 3 weeks, but I would encourage 4 weeks. But at 3 to 4 weeks, whatever your goal is, set that and don't think past that. And my hope is after you're like me, after you're in 2.5 to 3 weeks, you're like you were saying, Vickie, you're feeling so much better that it's like, heck no, I'm not going back to how I felt before. But maybe that's what you need is just think small in the beginning. Don't feel like you have to commit for a lifelong thing. Wait and see. If you do it 100%, I'm betting that you'll commit after that. But if that's what you need to do small goals.
That is a great plan. I think that's fantastic advice and so much knowledge that you have about all this and your personal experience. I think this is going to really be beneficial for everyone. So again, I'll put all the links, all the things in my show notes, as well as the emails that goes out to my listeners, and hopefully they can connect and get those recipes. Thank you so much for being with me today and sharing all of this great information. Good luck with your cookbook.
Thank you for asking me to be a part of it because spreading the word, that's what it's all about.
This is such great information. Eating plant-based is such a good thing to do for your body. It will make you feel better, and it will make you so much healthier. And healthy looks great on you. The information contained in this podcast is for educational purposes only and is not considered to be a substitute for medical advice. You should continue to follow up with your physician or healthcare provider and take medication as prescribed. Though the information in this podcast is evidence-based, new research may develop and recommendations may change.